This is the Backlog Battle Podcast, episode 204.
I'm gonna slap you through the internet.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Backlog Battle Podcast. This is Alex.
And this is Daniel.
How's it going, Daniel? Happy New Year, by the way.
Happy New Year to you as well, man. I'm doing pretty good, you know. I'm just chilling right now, and I'm looking forward to the new year. Hopefully, it will be as good as 2017 was, although, you know, I kind of doubt it, but maybe we'll see.
Yeah.
At least gaming wise.
We can only hope, right? We can only hope. So just before we start, though, I just want to kind of remind people that if you guys haven't listened to last week's episode, that was technically, I don't know, it was supposed to be released at the end of the year, but it was released at the beginning of 2018. I guess I kind of flubbed up on that. Yeah, it was supposed to be the end of the year, so it's like, but anyways, like last week's episode was the Game of the Year episode, so if you guys missed that, you guys should watch it, right? So naturally, please do, because, you know, it's been so much fun doing that. And, you know, for the first episode of this year, obviously, we're gonna do something that I think is also like a tradition that is starting on the Backlog Battle Podcast, which is to try to rank and find out what games we're both looking forward to. I'm pretty excited about this, by the way, Daniel, because, I mean, you know, you say 2017 was awesome, but 2018 might just be as awesome. You know what I mean?
One can only hope, man. But like 2018, it's got some of the stiffest competition it could possibly have.
Yeah, I don't even know. Like, we don't know a lot about 2018. There's some people saying, like, oh, Death Stranding is coming, and oh, Shenmue 3 is coming. I'm like, there's no date.
No fucking way, man.
Yeah, there's no way, like, those games. I mean, I heard there's rumors saying Death Stranding is far along in the process, and that's the fastest game being developed. I'm like, okay. Once I finally see...
We don't know that.
Yeah.
We don't know any of it.
Nobody knows. Even when, you know, Mark Cerny talked about it at PlayStation Experience, saying, like, I played the first 5 hours of it, you'll understand. I'm like, you know, that's not an indication that the game is ready for release in 2018. So, yeah. But anyways, like, I know I'm getting ahead of myself. How are you, man? How's the new year? How did you celebrate it, dude?
You know, I didn't do anything too special. I was just hanging out with my family, and I drank some shitty champagne. That's pretty much it.
Okay. You guys didn't do anything? Like, you know, watched a movie or TV or, I don't know, play a video game?
Nah, not really. We just kind of hung out and, you know, watched the ball drop, and that's pretty much it. Nothing too special.
Okay, so that's something. At least you're watching the ball drop. That's pretty cool. Funny thing that happened to me and my friends here and stuff. So basically, we had some people over. It's basically like, you know, like just a small gathering of people and stuff. Because the night before, what had actually happened was we had invited a friend of ours over, and we played a little bit of Jackbox Party Pack 4. And so we played some Fibbage, and we laughed so hard, like, that we kind of decided, like, for New Year's Eve, why don't we just play Jackbox until the ball drops and, you know, like, do the celebrating thing, you know?
But wait a minute. For the unassuming viewer or listener, rather, you know, what is that? Give us the skinny on this game.
Okay, so the Jackbox Party Pack is a series of games made by the guys who made You Don't Know Jack. Now, if you remember that, it's an old school trivia game back in the 90s, and for some freaking reason, they're still around and making trivia games. How crazy is that? Like, all this highfalutin technology and stuff, and here they are with very minimalistic but snazzy graphics and UI. And it's kind of funny because, like, while we were playing a lot of, we were playing a lot of Fibbage 3, which had a lot of really interesting kind of 60s inspired game show graphics and presentation and music, and I was like, and I kind of fell in love with it, oddly enough, like the whole presentation of it. But the Jackbox Party Pack is comprised of like 4 or 5 or 6 different games that each have a different, kind of flavor to them, and they're great party games. In fact, a lot of people on Twitch and YouTube actually use them as, kind of like viewer participation kind of games and stuff, because you can, as long as you have like a phone or a tablet or a computer and internet access, you can join a Jackbox game, and it's just super fun. And I, like I said, like I highly recommend it. I've never really played a lot of these games before, but man, it's so much fun. Have you ever played?
Seems a little different from your usual go-to entertainment.
No, it totally is. I mean, it's still a video game, naturally, but what really fascinates me is how this company has survived the test of time, and they're still around. And I'm really happy that they still exist, to be quite honest. That being said, I don't like some of the games in Jackbox Party Pack 4, but I know that 3 has some really fun stuff in it. So, at some point, I'm thinking about maybe in the future or some, whenever that's going to be, that maybe I'll play some Jackbox Party Pack 3 with some of the community members of Backlog Battle, like
Maybe.
Yeah, I think it'll be funny. Have you played it?
No.
Oh my God. It's freaking awesome. Like, as far as trivia games go, it's pretty damn up there. It's pretty awesome. As you might expect, even on your phones and stuff, playing remotely, it's it still has the same flavor as if you were actually like physically present. Because really, it's just a means to an end. It's a controller. But yeah, that's really what we were doing. In fact, the ball dropped, and we didn't even notice it until like maybe 10, 20 minutes later. Like, we're like
just too into it.
Yeah, we're like, hey, yay, Happy New Year. Okay, what's the next question? So, yeah.
I mean, that speaks volumes of how good it was, where, the main point of the night was ignored.
Yeah.
Just for the sake of this game.
Pretty much. So, but yeah, like that's pretty much like all, we were up to. And, I think we played until like 3 a.m, and we didn't even notice.
Shit.
Yeah, we didn't even notice that it was like 3 a.m. But yeah, so I, props to the guys at Jackbox, games, which that's their new game. That's their new, name, so to speak. Sorry, I said game. I'm like, no, that's their new name. They used to be called Jellyvision, but it was kind of cutesy. But yeah, Jackbox Games, great guys, great games. So. Yeah.
Cool beans.
Yeah, cool beans. So, speaking of which, did you get any cool stuff from, for Christmas and stuff?
I got one gift in particular that was pretty notable.
Oh, okay.
It was from my sister, and she got me something and that she described as something I didn't know that I wanted, and she was right.
Oh no.
It was a blanket, which is very good material, by the way, surprisingly. But it was a blanket of Berserk.
Wait, like, are we talking about Griffith or Guts?
Guts.
Okay, that's really weird. I mean,
well,
wow.
Better Guts than Griffith. I mean,
everybody's fawning on Griffith, so it's like it's kind of interesting to have Guts there.
After the end of the Golden Age arc, I don't want to fawn over Griffith in the slightest. Like, hey, if you haven't watched the show, do it. It's great.
Yes.
As long as it's the one from the 90s. Don't watch the new one. It's crap.
Oh man, I haven't watched like any of the new stuff yet, so that's
don't bother. Just don't do it.
Oh, okay.
They ruined it. But
wow.
the original show from the 90s is pretty godlike, pretty pretty amazing.
Okay.
And the blanket is like his face. I think like in the middle of him like slicing up a demon.
I thought it was like a fucking body pillow. Oh my gosh! Like this is even worse. I thought like because I mean I remember us talking about it, but I didn't really ask the details of what it was. But the fact that it's just this big ass fucking face like on the blanket, that is some ridiculous shit right there.
Yeah, and he's like yelling. He's like, ah!
Wow. I can only imagine what this looks like. Holy crap. Oh, wow.
I would imagine if you gave it to a 7-year-old, it would be pure nightmare fuel.
I would imagine. Oh my gosh. Man. You know, like you could this is like one of those things where you could close a door and staple this like in the doorway so that if somebody fucking opens the door, they'll see that face and they'll just plop to the ground in terror, in just pure terror.
You know, just start experiencing seizures. Just like,
Wow. I can't imagine. Wow. I am kind of flabbergasted. Like, I can't believe this. His face. Like, what? Like, come on.
Yeah.
His face.
But the quality of the blanket itself is like, it's really soft. It's really good.
I mean,
it's very comfortable.
I mean, are you sure your sister just didn't find like a blanket company that does like branded or, you know, like
No.
Oh.
No, it had the logo, the official like Berserk logo on the packaging. Like this was legit. Like this is like official merch for the show.
Wow, that's unfucking believable.
It's crazy.
Oh my gosh. Oh, well, I mean that's nice. I mean, the Jackbox Party Pack 4 was the gift that I received. But yeah, that takes the cake, man. Like I've got nothing that beats that. That's kind of insane.
Yeah, man. I mean, it was the gift I never knew I needed.
Yeah, I guess so, and I guess she was right, huh?
Oh, I love it. It's fantastic.
Okay.
I'm a huge Berserk fan, so I shall cherish it.
Okay, and hug it at night and sleep with it.
I don't know about that. I won't go that far.
Okay.
Maybe during a movie.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. We're going into some really weird territory here. Okay, well, that's cool. I'm glad to hear that your holidays were pretty badass and stuff. And to all the people out there,
literally,
yes, very gutsy holiday season. Okay. I'm pretty happy for like everybody who has joined us. Of course, you know, listening to this wonderful first episode. This is the official first episode of 2018. It's it's not last week's. That was from last year. This is the very first official episode of 2018, which marks.
So the last episode was the first unofficial episode of 2018, but this is the first official second episode of 2018.
Yes, I guess you're right. Oh my gosh, this is getting really, really complicated. But like I said at the beginning of this show, we're here to talk about our top 5 most anticipated games of 2018. And the reason why we're actually doing this is that we want to actually kind of, go back to this episode at the end of the year to see if any of our opinions of these games have changed since release. Because, like one of the things that a lot of people do at the beginning of the year is just talk about the games they're looking forward to, but they never go back to it. They never think about wait, were we right? Like, I don't even remember anymore. Like, you get that way sometimes, right? Like, I mean, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I agree. I think it will be interesting and we can go through the year and we can talk about these games as they come out, but then at the end we can kind of just have a moment where we look back and officially go wow, we were on point or totally off.
Totally. It'll probably be mostly totally off because we have no idea what these games are. It's just more pure marketing hype. So
I'm willing to bet it's going to be a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B.
Okay. So if it's okay with you, I'm thinking that we should just start this episode. What do you think?
Go for it.
Okay, so how do you want to do this? Like, in the last time, I actually allowed you to start with, the end of the year, game of the year stuff. Do you want me to start, or do you want to start? And just for people to, to kind of get people on the same page, we're starting from 5, working our way to our most anticipated game of 2018. And then
I'd say you should go ahead and go first.
Okay. And then after that, we're going to do honorable mentions, because why not? Because, we're already in this kind of mode, and I think it's fun. So anyway, so I have, just to let you know, Daniel, I have 8 games on my list. And it was really super challenging to kind of whittle it down. And mind you, we're not going to include games that are quote-unquote theoretically coming out in 2018. So Death Stranding is not on here. The Final Fantasy VII Remake is not on here. Shenmue 3 is not on here. And I can go on and on. Kingdom Hearts 3 is not on here, even though Square Enix insists that it's coming out in 2018. So
we don't fucking trust you.
Yeah, we don't trust you guys. So I'll just throw this out there right away. My number 5 is Detroit Become Human.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know you have very strong opinions about Mr. David Cage.
Hack.
But to kind of, bring it back down, Detroit Become Human, I've seen it demonstrated many times before, since its release, and it's becoming a lot clearer as to how this game is going to be. And now, you could probably say the same for many games that have had releases and they show the best parts and stuff like that. But, one of the things that kind of turned me around on the game was when they showed that prolonged demo at the PlayStation Experience. Yes, I know a lot of you guys didn't like it because it's boring as shit, but they played Detroit Become Human and actually had the crowd decide what to do in certain cases in the game, which was really freaking cool. And yes, there is some jank to it, but the fact that the main characters are androids make it excusable. I mean, the jank is excused by, well, they're robots, so there you go. There's the jank. Like,
okay, but what if everyone is jank? I don't think everyone are robots.
No, not everybody, but then you get this weird, like, Battlestar Galactica situation where some people might be really robots. Maybe. I'm guessing that might actually be something. But that's kind of like where I'm getting at, is that, I'm okay with that. And what they showed of Detroit Become Human, the PlayStation Experience, actually made me want the game even more. More so than I have been ever since it got released. Because just like you, I was like, David Cage, I don't know about this. And I never really played, his last game, which is Beyond Two Souls, right? That's the name of the game. Yeah. Yeah.
That game.
You played that game?
I watched the Let's Play, which let's be frank, with a David Cage game that's about the same experience as playing it.
Oh, damn.
Come on, let's be real.
In a way, I think
especially with that game, because the decisions that you make are completely irrelevant except until the very end of the game. The end game decisions are the only ones that actually change the ending.
Okay,
so unlike Heavy Rain, where you can make some decisions that actually have some somewhat tangible changes to the story. In Beyond Two Souls, literally none of your decisions mean anything except for the last few at the end.
So what you're telling me is it's basically the Mass Effect 3 of David Cage games.
Oh, that's burn. And I thought I disliked David Cage. That was way more of a burn than I would have said.
Okay, but yeah, Detroit Become Human, I mean, it has a very compelling story, in my opinion, and like I said, like, there's something to this game that, and also the way that Sony has been presenting it, that makes it seem like Beyond Two Souls was kind of a mistake, in a way, in the grand scheme of things, and that,
to put it lightly,
and that they're trying to veer back towards a good direction on Detroit Become Human. So I'm very hopeful of it. We'll see what I feel about the game at the end of the year. But
like, because the thing with David Cage is he loves to shove in some supernatural bullshit in his stories. Like, at least with like Indigo Prophecy, they let you know straight away. I mean, it's still dumb, but whatever. But and same with Beyond Two Souls. But did you know that Heavy Rain originally was going to have like supernatural elements in it, but they weren't fleshed out at all, and it ended up making the story like really like convoluted and completely nonsensical, and they ended up cutting out all of that from it, and that's why the game has like these really gaping plot holes.
I would imagine, but hopefully, like I said, like the way that they presented it in PlayStation Experience, it wasn't David Cage that showed up there, by the way. It was, I think, the producer, which, I think like that's like a statement saying like, hey, we actually have somebody like dangling the fucking budget in front of his face now, so he doesn't go overboard and ape shit with the scope. So, yeah, our game will be good.
Like, I think they're starting to become embarrassed by him because he's become a joke.
Yeah, I think he still has maybe a game or two until he becomes a joke. Like, we're not talking about decades. We're not talking about decades of Peter Molyneux here. Let's put it that way.
That's true, but I'm just saying that like I think the general public probably likes his games because they're like interactive movies, and the casuals like that.
Mm-hmm.
Not that, to be fair, there's nothing wrong with that. I like Telltale games, so I'm not saying there's anything specifically wrong with that. But just more so that, like, the general public seems like his games because of that. But, like, I'd say, like, most people who are, like, you and me, and who are, like, more active in the community and are a little more critical, tend to look down on David Cage's games for being not very well thought out.
Yeah, we'll see. We will see how Detroit, comes around and stuff. And
I have heard multiple times that they hired like editors and people to ring him in so that he doesn't go too far off the deep end.
Yeah.
So let's see how that works out.
At this point, like, games are so expensive to make, I wouldn't doubt that actually is happening. So, yeah. Anyways, what's your number 5? I'm curious.
For me, it's Mega Man 11.
Wow. Mega Man 11.
Yeah. I mean, I saw the trailer, and I know some people were down on it, and they were like, oh, it looks cheap and blah, blah, blah. But you know what? I liked the way it looked. I've always been kind of weird with the Mega Man series. Like, everyone hates 7. I like 7. Everyone hates 8. I also like 8. Yeah, sue me. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
And, I looked at 11, and while I can agree to a certain extent, there is a little bit of a cheapness to how it looks. At the same time, I also really like the cartoony look to it. I really like there was one GIF in particular that I saw where Mega Man was like shooting an enemy, and the enemy's animation looked so good and fluid with like the chibi sort of colorful animation to it that I couldn't help but just like, oh man, that looked really nice. And I haven't played a good Mega Man game in a while as well. I definitely didn't get Mighty Number 9.
Ugh. Yeah.
So I'm not expecting this game to be, the second coming, return to form of Mega Man per se, but I am expecting it to be a good, solid Mega Man game.
I mean,
that's all I need.
I agree. And to your point earlier, I don't even know what people are expecting Mega Man to look like, because I don't think anybody has actually like come out and said, I want Mega Man to look like this. And people have flocked to it and said, yes, that's a good idea. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's one thing like Mighty Number 9, where they showed like concept,
it just looks so bad.
Well, yeah, exactly, right? Like, the concept art was really good and looked great, right? And then, of course, the game comes out like shit. But
it came out looking terrible.
Yeah, but then you have Mega Man 11, which to me actually looks pretty damn good. And, of course, people are hating on it. I'm like, what are you guys expecting? A gritty fucking reboot? Like, what is going on? Yeah.
It looks better than Mighty Number 9. I mean, not that that's saying much, but it does.
Yeah.
It almost felt like the people who made Mega Man 11 were looking at Mighty Number 9 going, we got to be better than that. We got to be way better than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I actually almost thought, like last year that Mega Man 11 was a response to Mighty Number 9 being so much crappier. It's like Capcom is like, that's pretty sad if that's what you think of Mega Man. So let's just kind of erase this game out of existence by making a new one. I feel like that's what they're really trying to say here. I don't know if you agree with that.
I would agree. And I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be good. My only hope is that they do polish some of Mega Man's animations. They did look a little stiff in the trailer. So all I'm hoping is they just smooth out his animations a little bit more and I'll be peachy.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. I have my complaints too, but come on, like what? Isn't the game coming out like until fall or something like that?
Yeah, I think that's another thing. People really underestimate how much can change in a game. And I remember when the Neo demo, the alpha first came out. Mm-hmm. I said like, oh, it has some problems, but I think this is stuff that will definitely be fixed. And I remember some people, dogged on me for that. It's like, no, you're being naive, and this is all going to be the same. Wow. And look how wrong they were. Like the difference between the alpha build compared to the full product, even day one, even on release, is a huge difference.
Right.
So people severely underestimate how much change a game undergoes throughout its development. Even during like a week or two, like lots of fixes are being put in place. Optimization. Tons of stuff.
And sadly, like the kind of knee-jerk reaction that you're describing is exactly why developers and publishers don't give us demos. So please shut your freaking trap and let them work on the game, okay? This is a demo. Mm-hmm. This is probably like a build that was like many months old. Do you know what I mean? So it's like it really doesn't represent what the game like looks like or even feels like right now. And in fact, it's well known that optimization actually occurs towards the end of a game's development cycle. So yeah.
I think I have a good analogy. It's kind of like if you're writing a script, right? And you have your rough draft. You do most of your edits at the end. Mm-hmm. So in a similar way with a video game, if you're looking at like an alpha or a beta and you're complaining like, oh, this looks choppy or blah blah blah, in a similar way, at the end, that's when they tighten everything up.
Right. Exactly. That's a good analogy. It's good. I like it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
you can quote me on that.
Okay, sure. Let's do that.
A patented Daniel metaphor.
There you go. Yeah, it'll show up in all the magazines. It's like a quotable. There you go. TMZ even. So all right. So my number 4 is A Way Out. Not because of Joseph Ferris's ridiculous comments in the Game Awards. Yes.
That was the best.
That was the best. That was really freaking insane.
It's like, hold on, fuck the Oscars. Like, what?
That was
what?
Yeah, that was freaking crazy.
He was drunk. He had to have been.
Maybe?
He had to have been.
Maybe. I don't even know. I feel like that's his personality, which is kind of insane.
It's just him.
Yeah.
He's just naturally like going around saying fuck the Oscars.
Yeah. I feel like out of all my top 5, this game has the higher tendency to be extremely good or extremely bad. Now,
that's kind of how I felt too. Looking at it, I'm
Yeah.
like, this is either going to be pretty good or train wreck. Either way, it should be entertaining.
right, because some of the ideas. Okay, so A Way Out is actually like a local and online co-op only game, meaning you cannot play this by yourself, which is kind of an insane and ballsy thing to do, especially in this day and age. But if you think about it, there hasn't been a lot of purely co-op games or games that really take advantage of the fact that there are two people that you know that can play the game. And so I felt like, what's really interesting about this is the fact that it is built just for that. In fact, like, I don't actually think you can matchmake in this game, if I remember correctly, which is kind of crazy. Like, you literally have to go in with a friend to play it. But more importantly, like, the way that the game frames the action on screen is kind of reminding me of how 24 did its little split screen kind of cuts and edits. Remember that TV show? Like,
yes,
yeah.
I remember that show. I didn't really watch it, but
Sure.
I knew people that did, so I'm aware of it.
But you know the edits that I'm talking about, right? Where it kind
like
of,
doom, 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 doom,
well, not even
doom, doom.
no, not specifically that, but where they'd actually have like maybe 3 different pieces of footage running on the same screen at one time, just to kind of give you an idea of what's happening concurrently. Like it's a neat trick, and A Way Out actually does a similar thing. But of course, what happens is, what's actually happening is from time to time, if they want to kind of accentuate an action happening to a specific player, they'll shrink or grow the split screen depending on like what's going on. And to me, like, that was actually one of the neat things that I saw when watching some of the gameplay footage of A Way Out. But like I said, it's got the highest potential to be really good or really bad in this entire list. Like, I can't, like, even Detroit Become Human, which, I've known, David Cage to be like all crazy and, sometimes reserved, whenever that was. But A Way Out, it's like, it's unproven. Like, that studio is unproven right now. Hazelight has existed.
I've never heard of these people. Don't know what they've done.
Yeah.
And they're coming out the gate with this really weirdly ambitious title. I'm just like, what? What are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what worries me. But that being said, I am all for somebody trying, their darndest to make a new kind of way of playing work. So A Way Out actually nudges Detroit just ever so slightly off of that number 4 list to claim that number 4 on my list.
I find it interesting that your number 5 and 4s are games that have a roughly equal chance of either being pretty good or huge train wrecks.
I think A Way Out actually has a bigger chance of being either. Because
it probably does.
Because think about it, like, co-op only, you can't play this by yourself. You have to have somebody right next to you, or of a friend who has the game.
Yeah.
Now, I've heard some weird ass rumors that said like you only need 1 copy of the game to play this online, but I might just be making that up. Like, there are so many things that I heard
that could go wrong.
And exactly. And there's another thing, right? At least Detroit, from what we know, doesn't have any sort of online component that we know of, but where it's actually, of course, central to the gameplay. But A Way Out in general has that right smack dab in the middle and front and center of the whole game. So if that online doesn't work, oh boy, people are gonna get pissed. But
it's gonna be bad.
I'm hoping not. I'm hoping for the best for A Way Out, because
no, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, we ideally we would want it to be a good game.
Yeah,
but the writing's on the wall, as they say.
Yeah, we'll see. We will see. It's coming out in March.
But one can hope.
Yeah, it's coming out in March. We'll see how that goes. So, what's your number 4, good sir?
Dynasty Warriors 9.
Why? Why? Do we really need to fucking, play the Yellow Turban Rebellion again? How many times do we have to play the Yellow Turban Rebellion?
Okay, hear me out. Okay? This one's going to be open world.
So, okay. But it's still the Yellow Turban Rebellion. It's not going to change.
But I'm curious to see how they're going to take the Muso formula and put it in open world. I can't even imagine that. Like, I'm not even really sure how that's supposed to work. So I'm just more so just curious, just like, what the hell are they going to do? Like,
wow.
Come on, you have to at least tell me that makes you a little curious.
I'm a little bit curious, but then again, I think about the concept of like a Dynasty Warriors game, and it's and what they potentially might do. It's like, hey, let's just make the map bigger and call it open world, right? I mean, it's like
they may do that, sure. But I also do like the Muso games. I don't think they're great games or anything, but I do think they're entertaining. To me, they're like the junk food of video games,
Okay.
I think that's a fair approximation, right? Like,
okay.
There's not much substance to them, but they're enjoyable enough for the moment. And the fact that they're trying to make it open world to me is like, oh, they're going for barbecue flavor. Like,
wow, that's now you're making me want barbecue, you asshole. Man,
I want some too. Actually, fuck.
You set this up yourself.
I know. I have only myself to blame.
Yes, you do. So yeah, I mean, Omega Force, when they put their mind to it, they can really make interesting iterations of the Dynasty Warriors / Misao kind of formula. So yeah, I can see that. But higher than Mega Man 11? Really?
Well, with Mega Man 11, yeah, I mean, I do want that game, and I am looking forward to it, but the thing is, Mega Man 11 still looks like a Mega Man game. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Dynasty Warriors 9 has me more intrigued just because it's like they're adding in like this whole other element that like is so vastly different for the series. It's like, I just want to see what that's going to be like. I'm morbidly curious. Just how's that going to work?
Okay.
And maybe it won't be anything special at all. Maybe it'll just kind of be like, whatever, it's not even like a big deal, but maybe alternatively, maybe it'll be really cool. Maybe it'll be something that adds a lot to the experience. It'll be something that makes the Muso series, something to be like taken seriously. Who knows?
Look, man, if you're not being forced to ride a horse to ride across like mainland fucking China to go to like do the Yellow Turban thing, I won't be interested, because that just basically means like they'll have a bigger map and some element that changes it up a little bit, but otherwise it's just gonna be Masao, and I don't.
Well, let's just see what they do. I'm just super curious.
Okay.
And plus, I played the crap out of Samurai Warriors 4.
Wow.
And that game is awesome.
Okay.
So, they've been in my good graces lately.
Okay. All right. You have a good point. I'll give you that. So,
plus Samurai Warriors 4 is super fucking good, man.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I mean, as long as you're into that kind of game, of course. Like, if you, I know people who just like are staunchly against Muso games, period, and I'm like, yeah, okay, it's not going to change your mind, but it's, if you're into that, Samurai Warriors 4 is pretty freaking good.
Sure. I am looking forward to the Fist of the North Star Kiwami game, which it's not really
that's not being made by Omega Force.
But it almost kind of looks like one. I don't know.
Well, Omega Force did make 2 Fists of the North Star games.
That's true. Did we ever get that?
Yes, we did. We got both of them.
Okay.
I played the first one, and it's super fucking slow. Like, the animations are extremely sluggish.
That's too bad. I mean, what I was trying to do is to kind of like really give like Omega Force credit, because like I said, like sometimes they do some really cool shit for, the franchises and brands that they work with, right? Like I heard like Fire Emblem Warriors was actually pretty good, but I'm like...
Hyrule Warriors I really liked.
Yeah, Hyrule Warriors I heard was pretty good. Dragon Quest Heroes 2 is still sitting in my backlog, so there goes that.
A lot of people have praised that game.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I just don't... I'm not... I don't know, just the idea of spending a full price on a Masao game.
No, I totally get that. Yeah. Like they're typically not games you would want to pay full price for, and normally I wouldn't either.
Yeah.
But if I were, this would be it.
Okay.
Just because it's so vast, it seems like it's going to be pretty different.
Okay. All right.
Which I think is fair.
Okay, that is fair. That is fair, especially out of curiosity and stuff.
Yes.
So, cool.
So what is your next most anticipated game of the year?
So people will probably think that this should be higher on my list based off of like what they know about me, but once you guys hear like what the next two is, you'll probably be like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. This one is going to be where God of War is going to sit. Now, I know how you feel about God of War, the new God of War, but I feel like it's actually the right move. And, a lot of people kind of like, was poo-pooing it because they're like, oh, man, it's third person over the shoulder and stuff. But, the thing is with that camera angle, it's so much more intimate than like seeing your person looking like a little freaking, the size of your thumb on your screen, that there's a very valid reason why they picked that camera angle, and in order to kind of, I feel like really make the battles more intimate. And I'm not talking about like, like what some people are saying where it's like, oh, they're knocking off Dark Souls or whatever. It's not even that. I'm not even thinking about that when it comes to this game. I'm actually, thinking about God of War in a very, very different way that I was thinking the original series in the trilogy or quadrilogy, whatever the hell you call it, because it's literally like them making a clean break from the previous God of War games and saying let's try something brand new. In fact, let's even bring the God of War 2 director in here, which is Cory Barlog. He's really he knows what I personally feel like God of War 2 is like the best in the series, and
I will agree with that.
And I think that this dude knows what the fuck he's doing. He was the guy who pushed everybody to be like, no, this is going to be third person over the shoulder. And the entire studio like hated him for that, because they're like, there's no way, until he basically crammed the idea down their throats, and they had to do it. And so I feel like the game, is potentially going to be like one of those really good games that people didn't expect that they would care about. Again, like, because it's also coming out coincidentally around the same time Horizon did, which nobody really expected Horizon to be good, but it's actually really great, and I feel like God of War is going to be that game for Sony this year.
One of the things that bothers me though is I don't really feel like this should have been a God of War game. I think I would be a little more accepting of this game if it was its own thing. Because I've seen all the trailers, I've seen like most of the stuff that they've shown of the game so far, and literally the only thing about the game that says God of War to me is the main character's name is Kratos, and he has the same paint, and that's literally it.
But that's the thing though, because if you played God of War 3 and you finished it, that's it. Like that was it for the entirety of like the Greek mythology stuff. There really isn't any way to continue even past that part, especially with the kind of story that they built for him, right? Like he can't rage forever, especially beyond that part. It wouldn't make sense. So then the question is like, what would be the most logical progression for that character? Because
no progression at all, just kill him.
Okay, that's also very valid. But like I feel like with the kinds of budgets that they're working with and stuff, like, I think they would be safe to say that maybe they had a different idea before and they decided, hey, let's make this into a God of War game. I mean, we could posit however we want. We can posit like, oh, this could have been a different game, but that could be any game, right? Like, you could take, like, you know, like Zelda, for example, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and you could very much say, like, well, if you remove all these elements, it's not a Zelda game anymore. But the fact of the matter is, this is a God of War game. Yes, there are similarities with the character, but I feel like the complaint isn't warranted, because it's kind of like complaining for the sake of complaining, it sounds like. Like, you know, like, it's kind of like complaining like that, why is Mario in a fucking Mario Kart game, or, you know, kart racing game, or a party game and stuff like that? Like, the only difference is like, oh, well, this is a board game, but with Mario characters. You get what I'm saying? You get where I'm coming from with this? It sounds really strange.
Fully agree. I do understand where you're coming from, but from my standpoint, I just feel that this new game is so far removed from the original God of War series. I feel like it just should have been something different.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even see that. That sounds crazy. Right? Maybe, I don't know. Like, it's, yeah. I don't even know how you can have that argument. Like, I don't, because I feel like, because from a storyline standpoint, it makes sense. So
not to me. I mean,
where would? But that's the thing. Like, where would you have him go after that? If you say
wouldn't.
No?
I would have said, "This is the end. We're done." There is no progression for his character anymore. He has reached the end of his arc, which, in my opinion, was a terribly written one, because especially like in God of War 3, God of War 3 completely ruined his character. Mm-hmm. Not that he was even all that good of a character, in my opinion, to begin with. He was well characterized in God of War 1, but he wasn't like a particularly well written character. He just had like very strong, like, prominent characterizations, like his rage and his rage and his rage.
Yeah. I that's certainly not, you know, not something that I disagree, you know, with as far as that assessment goes. But what's wrong with trying to actually, like, create more characterization of the character? Like, you know, like,
I feel like at the end of God of War 3, his character is so utterly irredeemable that trying to redeem him now, I don't buy it. Because at the end of God of War 3, I hated Kratos as a character.
Wow.
Not just from like a writing standpoint, just from a fuck this character standpoint. What a piece of shit. Fuck that guy. And to now, with this reboot, to try and be like, oh no, he's a daddy again now. He's got a little boy. You should feel sorry for him. No, fuck you. He was a piece of shit.
I think that's a gross oversimplification of what could possibly happen in the storyline.
Well, I mean, I don't know what the story is, to be fair, in the reboot, but there, like, I just really hate his fucking character at this point, and to try and make me sympathize with him, I just don't want to deal with that. Mm-hmm. To me, I just don't buy it.
I really think that the approach that they're coming from is very interesting, because it's weird, because it's almost like you can almost say like it's a maturation of a studio. You know, and because I feel like a lot of the best games are being told thanks to, you know, memories and experiences that you experience as a human being, right? Like, I think the closer you are from that experience, I think you could tell the better stories. And I feel like it's almost, it's not just Kratos' story, but it's also the journey of, like, all the people who's worked on the series this whole time. And if you really think about it, like, the way that I see it, at least, is, you know, God of War 1 all the way up to Ascension was basically the adolescence phase. Like, that's, if you think about it, if you think of Kratos as like an angsty, angry teenager, that's kind of, it makes a lot more sense. You know,
but he's not. He had a wife and kid.
Yes, he totally isn't, right? That makes a lot of sense. But, like, you know, even if you think
you mean not literally the age of the character, but like, you mean like in terms of his character arc,
right? Yeah, I mean, really, like any freaking like teenager could write a storyline, right? It's all about angst. It's all about, and even Cory Barlog, the director, actually acknowledges that. A lot of people acknowledge that. Nobody at Sony is hiding the fact that they didn't really work on the storyline. They all admit it. But you know, one of the things that they also admit wholeheartedly is that many years have passed since they started working on this, and they never truly understood like what it was all, you know, what it was all about until they went back and decided, like, you know, like, we haven't worked on this game seriously. And I'm talking about seriously, I'm talking about the way that the reason why I say seriously is kind of like when you're concepting a game from scratch, right? Like, you know, like they had this idea of Kratos being angry all the time. That was their concept. But now we live in such a sophisticated time where when you think about that character, that's all you remember. But also all the people who have worked on it are kind of sick and tired of the idea that Kratos is associated with that kind of ideology, if you will. And
well, they made like God of Wars 1 through 3, Ascension, Ghost of Sparta. I think that there's another handheld game. Like literally every single game. Yeah. I haven't even played those. I haven't even played the handheld games, and I'm like 100% certain that he's still characterized by that same core, like like idea of rage.
Yeah, they're all canonical and stuff. So my bigger question is, you know, like, how are they gonna dampen that in God of War? Which is why, like, I feel like, to me, you know, you want to talk about like Dynasty Warriors 9 having like these quote unquote innovations. I feel like God of War is more interesting to me because of what they could do. Because we're talking about like a game that, like you said on your own admission, doesn't feel like God of War anymore. You know, like it could be a very different game. But that's what makes this exciting because, you know, it is a direct acknowledgement that they might have fucked up in the past with regards to developing this character. But on the flip side, I'm interested to see how this guy who has handled Kratos before, if he's able to actually redeem him. And here's another thing, too, that if you don't know about Cory Barlog, remember that Mad Max reboot or, you know, sequel or whatever that came out a few years ago?
Yeah.
He was actually partly responsible for some of the narrative and story choices for that movie. I don't know if you know
for
that.
The movie?
Yeah.
Fury Road?
Yeah.
Not the game?
Not the game.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
After God of War 2, he went on a sabbatical away from video games. This is the first and only other time Cory Barlog is directing a video game.
Okay, that's interesting.
So putting that into perspective with the kind of talent that he has, God of War is a more interesting project in that respect because this is a guy who literally left games and then came back. Yes, he was credited in other games, but not to the capacity of game director and a guy who was responsible for like a strong and huge part of a game. Not a, you know, and again, I have to stress, he hasn't done this since God of War 2. He's gone and left the industry and now he's back. So that should pique people's interest, especially with this game. And the reason why like this is above A Way Out and Detroit Become Human, because I guarantee you this is gonna be that game where people are like, wow, this made me like God of War again. Mark my words.
Well, we'll see. I'm extremely skeptical still, but I'm not going to say I'm not going to give it a chance. Of course.
I
want to give it a chance. I want the game to be good. All right. But I'm just saying, based on what I have seen, everything about it, for me, has just completely rubbed me the wrong way. The way that the fact that it's still a God of War game, the way the gameplay looks, the way the narrative has been presented so far, everything about it seems wrong to me. But it's just trailers, and watching a trailer and eventually like playing the game, you know, that's not the same thing. Right. Especially since it's trailers of the game at the time when when they were developing it. Who knows what the final product is going to be? So,
oh yeah, this is
I'm always willing to give things a chance.
Kind of like what we were talking about earlier. Optimization is happening right now at Sony because they're trying to gear up the game's launch and stuff. Naturally, things are going to be rewritten, things are going to be changing, and I'm pretty damn sure, like, Sony Santa Monica, of all people, know of your exact kind of concern. Because it does make sense. Like, it's like, yeah, he's a completely unlikable character at the end of 3, so what now? It's tough to measure that, especially with the kinds of footage that they're showing us, because, it's supposed to get us hyped on the game, right? It's not, they're not supposed to tell the story right now, but we will soon. That's the part that I'm really excited about. So, sooner than I thought. I mean, I guess I knew it was going to be like first quarter 2018, but I didn't really, in a way. Like, I wasn't sure if they were going to push it back, but
yeah, I was actually surprised to find out, like, oh, it's coming out this year. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I kind of knew it was gonna be, but like I said, I wasn't sure when. I had a feeling first quarter, but now it's official. It is gonna be first quarter. When? Who the fuck knows? Anyways, wow, we've been dwelling a lot on some of these games, which
there's a lot to unpack. To be fair,
yeah, and I actually really enjoy it because I think that. Like I said, like I don't think you actually knew that Cory Barlog had left the industry, to work on.
I did know he was working on this new game, but no, I didn't know that he decided, forget games for a while before he came back.
I mean, for a long while. When was wasn't God of War 2 released in 2004?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it was a long ass time ago. So we're talking he left the industry for about a decade, and then came back. It's
let me check
crazy.
Just to be sure. God of War.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's kind of crazy to think about, his career and stuff. But that's why
2007. But still 2007's 11 years ago.
Yeah, that is
nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, that is a long ass time. And like I said, that was my favorite God of War, so I have really high expectations of God of War.
As someone who is not a huge fan of the series, I enjoy them. They're not. I just don't think they're great games. I will say that God of War 2, I also agree, is the best in the series.
Yeah, because really anything after that was kind of only okay. God of War 3 looked pretty, but it didn't tickle my fancy like 2 did. I mean, come on, you were climbing the Colossus of Rhodes, and not to kind of deviate from the subject matter, I do have a try-play of God of War 2 if you want to take a look at it on the Backlog Battle channel, which is
interesting.
Yeah, which is at youtube.com/mybacklogbattle to relive those awesome moments. Try-play was built to find awesome opening moments in games. That opening in God of War 2 is the prime example of an amazing opening experience. Don't you think?
I agree. The opening is strong.
Yeah. I mean, you fought the Colossus of Rhodes. How much stronger can you have for an opening?
Yeah. It's a badass opening for sure.
Yeah. So anyways, now that that's out of the way, again, super stoked. What's your number 3?
It has to be the Shadow of the Colossus remake.
Why?
What do you mean, why?
Why? This thing has been remade God, this is the third time it's been re-released over the past.
No, it's not the third time. It got re-released on the PS3 as part of the HD collection, and now it's getting a remake.
Does it even need a freaking remake?
Well, yeah, kind of. Because the HD version, kind of messed with the physics in a weird way. So it wasn't quite like the definitive version everyone was hoping for. And now the remake can be okay, this can be the official, definitive version of the game. Because the original PS2 version is pretty hard to go back to. The frame rate sucks, and the game was way too ambitious for the PS2 to actually handle.
Mm-hmm.
But this is also one of my favorite games of all time. Like,
Yeah.
I friggin' love this game. I've beaten this game multiple times. I have no problem buying it again and playing it again. I love the game that much.
See, my problem with Shadow of the Colossus is that it's gonna be remade with all the warts that it still has. That's a big problem for me. Because, like, it's a great concept. I would much rather you iterate on it and make it a new one. You know, like, I'm done with this game. I was done with this game when I freaking got this in college. Like, it's a great game. You are absolutely right. It actually still is one of my favorite games. In fact, I still have my PS2 copy. And heck, I got the freaking HD re-release for free, which is, you know, whatever. But, like, you know, having another one of this is kind of weird to me because I already have 2 versions of the game, and one of which, again, I stress, the HD version was free. You know, PlayStation Plus, I think it was released for free.
I will say, I would have been way more excited for a sequel, but I'm still looking forward to it because it's still one of my favorite games of all time. And being able to play it again, but like with, you know, better, not better, but like more smooth gameplay, you know, more touched up visuals, like I'm cool with that. And I did hear that the original director Fumito Ueda did actually send Bluepoint, who are developing the remake, he sent them a list of like things that he actually wanted them to do in the remake. We're not entirely sure what the list says, but you know, it might be that he wants them to add new content. Who knows? So that could be interesting.
That seems a bit far-fetched. That it's like new content. I don't think so. I don't believe any crock of that, to be quite honest. If anything, like, you know, like, yeah, because it's just, I feel like you're right that the Shadow of the Colossus game is so ambitious for the platform that when you do iron all those pieces out on a new platform, you still have to emulate some parts of it so that it works you know, just as good, if not better than the original. It just seems like such a, I guess, pardon the pun, colossal task, if you will. That it's like, but this is kind of like where I'm coming from. It's like why? I mean, I kind of get it if, you know, my prediction of like, hey, the reason why they're doing this is so that, you know, all future like PS4 games or current PS4 games will be forwards compatible because of the x86 architecture of the new consoles. But it's like, man, do we really need a third version of the game? Like, when,
well,
honestly,
to be fair as well, though, like, this is a remake. It's not just a remaster. They're making it with new assets, so it's not like they just took the PS2 original and they upscaled it. You know, this has all new assets being made specifically for this remake.
But who's actually gonna, you know, like, look at it and be like, I mean, apart from the hardcore fans, who here, you know, is like a brand new person, you know, was a Sony fan and be like, I gotta get that game. You know, it's such a weird decision to me. Well, yeah, apart from the hardcore fans of the game, I said that just now. Like,
I think, but that's part of what a remake is for. Like, it is to introduce it to new fans, right? Like, I would imagine that a lot of the people who didn't own the PS2 back in the day, they're a newer fan, or they didn't have a PS3, this will be their chance to play this game on the PS4.
I just have this really bad feeling about this, especially like, you know, because it's got so, like, the gameplay is so non-traditional. The fact that you have a grip button and stuff, like, it's like, man, this, I almost
That's
feel,
what makes it unique.
What if they just removed it altogether?
I would not be happy with that.
That's another thing that you should be scared of then with this remake, because if the whole goal is to be like, hey, let's introduce this to a new batch of eyes, that could be potential compromise.
I guess that is something to think about. I don't think they would do that, because how the hell would you play that game without the grit meter? That would completely invalidate the game almost. The thing is, though, with the grit meter is the entire game, like all of the game's mechanics are centered around it. So I don't really think it would make any sense to remove it, because I think it would invalidate much of the game's experience. Like if you could just climb up the Colossus with no fear of falling off, then all of the tension would just be sapped away, and just it wouldn't matter as much. Like I feel like so much of what makes that game uniquely it would be gone.
Sure.
So I understand what you're trying to say. Like, oh, if they wanted to make it more accessible, they would do things like that to make it easier.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think they would do that, because it would be such a betrayal of the original game to the very foundation of it. Even
look, stranger things have happened over the past year. So I mean, and while
Sony, and that is a pretty good show.
Yeah, and that is, like I said, okay, but like, you know, considering that, you know, like. And to be quite honest, like Sony hasn't done or pulled anything like this, right? But we can't also discount the fact that they might make it a little bit accessible to a wider audience, like maybe an easy mode or something where you have a larger.
They didn't do that with the Crash collection. Those were pretty much remakes with like new assets, similar to Shadow of the Colossus, but they were pretty true to the original games.
Not entirely, especially with the kinds of collision that Crash had. It was actually not the exact same collision, which is actually, you know, has been the subject of many videos, actually. They said that the reason why the Crash remake is actually harder is because of the bounding box collision on the current Sonic. And apparently they can't fix that.
Okay, yeah, I did hear about that.
Yeah.
But to be fair, I was talking more specifically, like the game's structure and the game's mechanics are all still the same. They may have, you know, screwed around with the physics, but the core game is still the same.
Yeah. I'm just saying that, you know, like when they announced it, like I was not even excited. And you're good for being excited about this game. I just question the fact that it's pretty damn high on your list. But hey, it's your list.
You credit that specifically to it being one of my all-time favorite games.
Okay. Then that context actually makes a ton of sense. So
like if I were to make a top 10 favorite games of all time list, Shadow of the Colossus would be somewhere on that list.
Oh yeah. I believe you. It's pretty high on my list as well, although I have to reevaluate my top 10 games of all time.
I've never really even thought about what my top 10 would be. I just know that it would be there.
Man, that would be like a pretty good freaking podcast episode if I ever thought of
Oh, God damn it.
Thank you.
Put me on the spot. I just gave you a nefarious idea. Shit.
Yes. What? Okay, so
this is like a Doctor Who episode where it turns out the Doctor accidentally created his nemesis.
That sounds like a Doctor Who.
He's responsible for the Master. Fuck.
Yeah. Damn it, Jim. Okay, so my number 2, and again, this is gonna surprise people because, you know, again, you think God of War would be higher, but somehow it's lower, and I would say not by much, and it's actually Far Cry 5.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah. So
I've never played any of these games, so
okay.
You know.
So Far Cry was okay for the first part. Like, for the most part. Like, the first game was cool. It had, like, this really cool idea. At the time, it was made by Crytek, right? The second game was actually created internally at Ubisoft, which had a terrible mechanic where you have to inject yourself with malaria shots every single time to prevent yourself from dying. Imagine doing the shooty thing with a malaria thing. That's not fun.
No,
right?
Doesn't sound like it.
No, it's not at all. And then they nailed it with Far Cry 3. Far Cry 3 was one of those games where you remembered who the villain is, and you somehow wanted the main protagonists to fail and succeed at the same time. Now, let me get this straight. The protagonists are a bunch of teenagers, like, Gen Xers who really don't care about anything except themselves. They're super duper rich white kids and stuff. And then they accidentally, parachute into a terrorist-filled territory of the world, and they find themselves under siege by these terrorists. Think about that for a second, that plot line. And of course,
Okay.
Vaz, the main character, basically, like, totally brings you down to his level, saying that your riches don't matter here, boy, because in this island, I am king. Like, that's kind of like the attitude. And mind you, that's like all in your face, all being done in the in-game engine. And he is probably one of my favorite villains in Far Cry history. If only they had stuck with him to the end. Because Ubisoft kind of fucks up that storyline towards the end of Far Cry 3. But as far as the first several minutes and hours of that game with Vaz as the villain, you will always remember his name and how terrifying he is. And that's really, and that's a great start for, like, a series that I've pretty much written off, especially after the second one with that stupid malaria mechanic. And it was so good, in fact, that Ubisoft decided to spin that off and make Far Cry Blood Dragon, which is a cheesy 80s movie version of Far Cry, which works for some reason.
You know what?
What?
I lied. I've beaten Blood Dragon.
Well, there you go. Then you know how
and
Far
it
Cry
was
plays.
pretty cool. I liked it.
Yeah. So that's coming off of the success of Far Cry 3 being an awesome game. Now, Far Cry 4, it's had some really questionable design choices. It forced you to side with one or the other. And spoiler alert, both of them are actually wrong. And so you kind of disagree with both sides. I don't like siding with one side or the other in games in general, because I like the fact that I am my own person. And to learn that, all of this is kind of silly anyway is kind of dumb, in my opinion. So I actually sold my copy of Far Cry 4 when I learned that. Kind
of like in Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne, where you have the choice of either going through the route of chaos or law, or you can go pure neutral.
Yeah. And it really doesn't matter in Far Cry 4. Far Cry Primal, which, I feel like it's an experiment. They used the same map of Far Cry 4, removed all the modern stuff, and set the storyline back into, Stone Age or the Barbarian days, whatever, which is novel. I've always wanted them to go back to the feel of Far Cry 3, where it's kind of like this really foreign world and stuff, but with really cool gameplay that is varied and, sometimes terrifying, but with great gunplay and some really interesting, quests and storyline developments, if you will. Far Cry 5 is actually set in I think the Midwest. I don't remember right now what the exact state is, but I think it's in Missouri. I think. Can you look that up real quick?
Missouri?
Yeah.
That's fucking weird. Because all the Far Cry games take place in, like, these exotic
islands.
Locations.
Exactly, right? Sorry, it's not Missouri. It's Montana. Like Hope County, Montana. Okay. So this is interesting to me because, like, the Far Cry team actually traveled to Montana and actually, like, not just took pictures, because anybody can take pictures, but actually like engaged with the people there and tried to learn what Montana is all about as a setting for Far Cry 5. And the storyline is turning out to be something that's surprisingly hits close to home, you know, like especially with the kind of stuff that we're experiencing right now politically. Basically what's happening and stuff is like in this county, in Hope County, Montana, there's a preacher named Joseph Seed who has kind of slowly brainwashed some of the people, not like literally, but like, you know, it's almost like he's building a cult based off of the people that's actually around this town. It's almost like, if you know, the way that I'm describing it almost sounds like Resident Evil 4-ish, but of course it's, you know, these people have their own kind of feelings about it. And of course,
yeah,
like,
they're not turned into ganados.
Yes, no. But like it's but yeah, like it's a doomsday cult in a way. You know, it's a militaristic doomsday cult. So it's kind of really strange because we've seen a lot of these kinds of cults pop up in real life before, right? Like if you remember the Heaven's Gate cult from like decades ago, like comes to mind as a doomsday cult, right? It's really kind of scary. In fact, the name of this cult is actually Eden's Gate. So, I mean, it's kind of very much in that same vein of like very dangerous kind of cultish kind of things. But the people of Hope County don't want to stand idly by and just watch their entire, you know, county get brainwashed. So a lot of people are trying to figure out if there's a way that they can kind of, you know, drive Joseph Seed and his cronies out away from, you know, like their county forever and stuff. And to me, like, that's a fascinating take on what seems to be like a stale formula at this point, right? Like you mentioned that Far Cry is typically held in exotic locales, mostly on
like
islands.
I haven't even, like, I've only played Blood Dragon.
Right.
I'm only like tangentially aware of the series, and even I know that, like, yeah, they all take place in like islands and jungles and, you know, exotic tropical locations. So for this game to be like, nah, forget that. It's completely different. You know, it's kind of interesting.
It is. And, you know, I love the fact that the feel of and the storyline and just the way that the game looks based off of the trailers feels something like it could have been like the next logical progression from Far Cry 3, right? Because Far Cry 3, in a way, even though it wasn't necessarily a statement on the Gen X kind of, you know, like generation, if you will, it feels like it was in some sort of way. So this game is coincidentally kind of making a statement about our political climate these days, but they never planned it to be that way, you know? And I feel like I might be giving too much, how should I put this, leeway into the Far Cry series by overthinking it perhaps, but I feel like that's kind of like where my interest level is for the Far Cry games. Like I want a game to be thought-provoking, but at the same time I do want to enjoy some of the stupid shit that you can do in Far Cry games, like, you know, like, I don't know, I heard that there's like a testicle festival in this one, so I thought that was really hilarious because apparently there is a real testicle festival in Montana. So I was like, wow, that's kind of crazy. Maybe. I don't know. I've never been to Montana. I mean, they would have.
And now I never will.
Right? But yeah, to me, it's interesting. And again, like Far Cry 5, I want this game to be as good as 3. I mean, I recently... Funny enough, Daniel, I do also have a try-play of Far Cry 3 on the Backlog Battle channel, which is
of course
youtube.com/mybacklogbattle. Hey, I did not pick these games without a good reason. I made a try-play for Far Cry 3 and God of War 2 because I knew those are the games that I am...
Because you knew we were going to talk about them in this episode.
No.
Of course.
Of course. No, those are the games that I feel were the most seminal games in their respective series. And so I wanted to be kind of ready when I jump into these new games so that I can kind of see, you know, if they were just products of their time or if they still hold up. And thankfully, God of War 2 holds up. and Far Cry 3 holds up, especially with how tense Far Cry 3 actually, develops its storyline and stuff. So I'm hoping that Far Cry 5 just captures that. And most importantly, and I didn't mention this before, Far Cry 3 had really good character development for all the characters, including the main villain. The fact that they have a named character in Far Cry 5, and I'm not just talking about like, a named villain, but there's a lot of villains in Far Cry 5 potentially. Hoping that they actually develop that storyline as well. And also, like, there are several people who want to help you out in your endeavor, and they're being developed in addition to, just being like the quest givers, if you will. So I'm really excited to see where they can take the storyline and the storytelling in Far Cry games, because I feel like this is a series that is rife for opportunity for storytelling. And I really hope that Far Cry 5 like really blows me away. So that, and by the way, this has co-op. This also has co-op.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So that's always fun in my book. So that's pretty cool. It's pretty damn cool, man. So what's your number 2? Now I'm curious, because you have a game that was already released on the PS2 as your number 3, and then a game that, to be fair, it is a remake. I'll give you that. And also a series that Masao series. Jesus Christ. I can't even. I
mean, come on. I do like the series, even though I harbor no delusions of this. I know that the series is potato chips.
Okay. So I will give you that.
But I can't help it that they're adding that barbecue sauce now, and I'm just like, man, I love me some mesquite.
But I can't help but think, what the hell your number 2 is going to be? Is this going to be like some weird freaking game that is a remake that, oh God, I don't even.
So, okay. I was debating between 1 and 2, and I'm like, man, which one am I looking forward to more?
If you say it's a remake of The Order 1886, oh, so help me God, I will slap your ass.
Wait, that's a remake?
No, I'm just saying, hypothetically, if it's something as ridiculous as that, I'm going to slap you through the internet.
You're going to slap me through the microphone?
Yes.
Don't worry. I think you'll agree with me on this one.
Okay.
Yakuza 6, baby.
Okay. All right.
I was really debating whether this should be number 1 or not, but I decided to make it number 2 just because I've already beaten 2 Yakuza games this year. So my fill of Yakuza, I'm pretty satisfied. So I'm still really looking forward to 6. 6 looks like it's going to be pretty awesome. They're making some pretty substantial improvements, but it's still more Yakuza. So the other game I'm more hyped for, but Yakuza 6 I'm still like, man, this game looks like it's going to be pretty good.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah. I know that there are many systems that they are introducing in Yakuza 6. So, like, it's interesting playing through Yakuza 0 and then Yakuza Kiwami, seeing the kinds of changes that they made through, like, the progression system, that they're even iterating on that and making it a bit more interesting in 6. Like, I remember speaking to the assistant, one of the producers of Yakuza, and him telling me about how, like, like the kinds of food that you eat will now determine what kind of experience points you can use for your for buying different skills. Going to the gym is going to matter. And you can hire a trainer. You can hire a trainer in Yakuza 6.
That's cool.
It's so crazy, right? And I'm, you know what? This is going to be like a spoiler for me anyway. I picked Yakuza 6 as actually my number 1.
Oh, really?
Why'd you go quiet all of a sudden?
I just wasn't expecting that.
You weren't expecting that? What were you expecting as my number 1?
Please.
Am I putting you in the spot here? Like, you just suddenly like got quiet so much.
I mean, I just wasn't expecting it.
Really? Oh my God. Jesus Christ. Again, what were people expecting? Like, Yakuza 6 was going to be a clear bet for me from the very beginning.
I was expecting it to be on the list. But yeah, think about it, it makes sense. Like, yeah, I guess it would be number 1.
Okay, so now can we talk about Yakuza 6 and how excited we are? Because it is my number one, and we're not doing a good job of being excited for it.
I think what's really interesting about it is this is going to be the final game for Kiryu.
Oh, what a heartbreaker, man.
Yeah.
Had some good times since the PS2 days, but now it's time to end it, huh? So sad. Too bad, so sad.
But the new guy that they're gonna that's gonna be later down the road. The new guy looks pretty cool, but
I don't even know who. I've never even seen the new guy, to be quite honest.
Oh, you haven't?
No.
Okay, he's kind of like Kiryu's opposite.
Wow. That's
where like they're even accentuating that through his design, where like Kiryu is like stoic and like clean. This guy is going to be like more reckless and messy.
Okay. So
like Kiryu has a very like deliberate fighting style. This guy's going to have like a more loose fighting style.
So we're talking the difference between the original design of Sonic the Hedgehog from Sega of Japan to the actual new design, the current design that Sega of America made for Sonic the Hedgehog, right? I mean,
I guess you could say it's like that.
Man,
they even inverted the color of his clothing compared to Kiryu's, where like Kiryu has like the red shirt and the gray jacket, and this guy has the red jacket with like wearing a gray shirt.
Interesting. Okay.
They're really trying to get across this idea like he is the opposite of Kiryu.
Is that character playable in 6?
I don't know. I don't think he's in 6 at all.
Oh, okay.
He's just going to be the new guy after Kiryu.
I didn't even hear about this, but okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think the game is going to be called Shin Ryu ga Gotoku.
Oh, wow. Okay. I mean, either way, I'm like super excited. I hope they don't make him too overbearing. Like again, gritty reboots. What's going on here? Like, they don't normally, go well, especially since like Kazuma Kiryu is such a charismatic and like nice individual. Like even though he's like a Yakuza, this guy seems. We'll see. I have faith. I will have faith. Okay. But we're talking.
Hey, the Yakuza team have not steered us wrong before.
Very true.
I mean, except with maybe Dead Souls, but we don't talk about that one.
We don't talk about. I do like that Dead Souls was acknowledged in Kiwami in some way. I actually really like that.
Yeah. With that Majima side story. Yeah.
It became like a unexpected canonical part of the story.
I don't think it was canonical per se.
Okay.
Especially since there's a character in that's supposed to be dead that's still walking around. So
okay. Yeah, you got a point. But yeah, like Yakuza 6 is, basically like really high on my list because I mean, to be quite honest, I think about like the fun times I've had with the series over the past mere 2 years, really. Like with Yakuza 5, Yakuza 0, Yakuza Kiwami, I've always enjoyed those games. So if there was a sure bet that I was going to enjoy any game out of any part of this list or any of the games that I'm about to mention in, our honorable mentions, Yakuza 6 would clearly be on top of all those guys because really you're in for a good treat every time you play a Yakuza game, regardless of what it is.
Yeah, I'd say even like a weak Yakuza game is still a unique experience worth playing. Like I have my criticisms of Yakuza 5 especially, but even then I wouldn't say like, oh, that's a shitty game. Like
right.
I still enjoyed it. I still put like, a ton of hours into it because I enjoyed it.
Yeah. It's like one of those games where it's like in the grand pantheon of like 5 or 6 or 7 games, like it becomes the criticism on the series, on one game in the series, becomes a criticism of where it fits within the greatness of the rest of the series. You know what I'm saying? It's like yeah. So it's like 5 could be the weakest one, but it's still collectively the series is still really good as a whole. You know, like to me it's Yakuza is at that level of notoriety at this point. Now, I
agree,
and I'm really happy though that, you know, thanks to Zero and all the memes, of course, and Yakuza Zero, that more people, more people. Well, mine is more, you know, the turkey storyline. That's the most memorable for me because
it's the one. The chicken is called. He calls him Nugget at the end.
That's right. Forgot about that.
He bowls a turkey, gets a chicken.
It's so dumb. But like again, like it's a great series, and like I said, like that's why Yakuza 6 is handily my number one most anticipated game of 2018. So congratulations, guys.
And that's why it's my number 2.
Yeah, exactly. So no pressure, Daniel, but what's your number 1?
Yeah, I thought about it and I realized, you know, this game, I'm more excited about it than I initially realized. Because the first game was a game that I wasn't too into, but it was one that I saw tons of potential in.
Okay.
So the sequel has me really excited because if they could just like address, and it sounds like it could be amazing, and that's Ni no Kuni 2.
Why did I somehow think you were going to pick Ni no Kuni 2 as your number 1? I don't know why. I was like thinking today, like, what would be his number 1 pick? That can't be Ni no Kuni. It can't be. And here we are.
Bet your ass it is.
I guess here we are.
Now, to be fair to the first Ni no Kuni, I never finished it. I really do want to go back to it because there's a lot about it I did like. But one of the things that kind of I bounced off of was the slow combat. Combat was, you know, it wasn't like a bad combat system, but it was a little slow, took some getting used to. But the new game's going to be an action RPG, which that's my bread and butter, you know?
Yeah.
And I love the Studio Ghibli art style. It's such a beautiful way of designing characters. The music in the original game was so fantastic, and I imagine that the music is going to be equally great in this one. It's being composed by the Studio Ghibli composer Joe Hisaishi. And it another thing about that game is it kind of reminds me a bit of just old school RPGs. Like it harkens back to that that same sort of charm, that same sort of like whimsical, like classic JRPG style that, you know, seems mostly lost nowadays. Like you might find it here and there, but it's something that it looks like this game is capturing, but is putting it in a modern context.
Yeah. The way that I would kind of put it is, you know, like every time I would see something about Ni no Kuni, whether it's 1 or 2, it always kind of harkened me back to Jade Cocoon on the PlayStation 1. Now, it's, you know, we all know that Jade Cocoon is kind of like supposed to be a parroting of like, you know, the Pokemon idea, especially in the PS1 days. But like,
you know, interesting enough, one of the character designers of Studio Ghibli worked on that game.
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, like, the most fascinating thing about it is that, you know, like, you know, you're talking about, like, it harkens back to an old time. Like, that, like, you know, the design and the aesthetics and also, like, just the general kind of feel of the game, to me, like, always reminds me of Jade Cocoon. So I think that's a very accurate representation.
Yeah. And like I said, like, I'm a big fan of Studio Ghibli's movies. Castle in the Sky, Kiki's Delivery Service, Princess Mononoke, Porco Rosso, The Secret World of Arrietty. I'm not kidding. I actually own all of these movies. They're great movies. Love them. Love Studio Ghibli. And one of the appeals of Ni no Kuni is being able to like actually be in a Studio Ghibli world. Their worlds are so imaginative and creative and whimsical and wonderful. that being able to actually wander around in a Studio Ghibli world, there's something priceless and magical about that.
Yeah. It's interesting that we're talking at so much detail about Studio Ghibli and stuff and their animation style, right? Kind of like the same way we were talking about Cuphead's animation style and their kind of identity through that animation style. You know, it's
if the studio that made Cuphead made like another game in the style of Studio Ghibli animation, I would like day one purchase that.
That would be trippy. But you do know that Studio Ghibli is not involved with a second game, right?
I do know that, but based on what I've seen, the art style is still pretty much the same. Yeah. So I'm not bothered.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I think though the biggest difference is like because Studio Ghibli actually animated the cutscenes for the first game.
Mm-hmm.
So I imagine the second game they're not going to have those, and everything's just going to be in engine, which that's fine.
Okay, that's cool. Pretty cool. All right,
and that Ni no Kuni is my number one most anticipated game. Let's hope it lives up to it.
Yeah, I hope so too. It's kind of interesting to me, like the lack of JRPGs in terms of like our lists, right? Like that to me, it's interesting because you're a huge JRPGer. I would say that I might be a casual RPGer, but JRPGer, but like I love my JRPGs. So in a way, as much as I like the choices that I have selected in my list, I'm kind of sad that we don't have a lot of JRPGs coming this year.
One I'm kind of regretting not putting on my list actually is, and I guess I'll throw it in right now as an honorable mention, is Dragon Quest XI. And the reason it's not on my list is because I've always been kind of cold on the series. I've never really played a Dragon Quest game that I was like, I fell in love with.
Mm-hmm.
The closest is probably 8.
Right.
But with 8, I actually had a pretty, like, this is a personal thing. It's not really the game's fault, but I had my memory erased for that game like several times, which kind of soured me to it, which, it's not the game's fault, but I can't help what happened. But, every time I tried playing other games in the series, I just kind of bounced off them. They didn't really do it much for me, which is why Dragon Quest XI didn't make it to my top 5, even though I feel like maybe it should have, but ultimately it didn't. But I will at least say it's an honorable mention because everything I have seen about it looks pretty awesome.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same thing. Like, I will get Dragon Quest XI. I feel like that's actually a very interesting game to me. But like, I know what I'm getting with a Dragon Quest game, right? Like, it's this is a series that doesn't stray or fall too far from the tree, if you will. Like, even
see, real quick, what I said before about Ni no Kuni is that how it harkens back to the traditional RPG. It does it within a modern context. Dragon Quest is the traditional RPG.
Yeah.
There really isn't much of a modern context. It just is those traditional RPGs.
Right.
And, I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. But at the same time, it does make them more impenetrable.
Yeah. Like the devotion to be old school is kind of crazy. If you think about it, it's kind of nuts.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I'm still looking forward to Dragon Quest XI, and it's just like one of those games where it's like, and in either way, like, even if I did remember, which by the way I didn't remember that Dragon Quest XI is coming here because it is what it is, but like, I know what to expect in that game, so that's why I don't have it on my list. As far as honorable mentions go on my list, I actually have 3. I have Bayonetta 2 for Switch because why not? I have never played Bayonetta 2 on the Wii U. Now I'll have an opportunity to play Bayonetta 2 on the Switch, and Bayonetta 1 included as well. So that's always pretty badass. You've already played it, so you're not really looking forward to this anymore.
I've platinumed the first Bayonetta. I don't think I'm ever going to go back and really play the first Bayonetta. At least not never.
Mhm.
Just not anytime soon. So
Right, exactly.
as for Bayonetta 2, I do own it, but I haven't really played it much. And this is going to sound like a weird nitpick, but the reason is because you know, in Devil May Cry, the way that you dodge is you lock onto the enemy and you move to the side and you press the X button. You do like a dodge roll.
Mm-hmm.
You could do the same thing in the first Bayonetta, but for whatever reason, that functionality was removed in Bayonetta 2, and it completely screwed me up.
Whoa! So how do you dodge now in Bayonetta 2?
Well, in Bayonetta 1, there is a specific dodge button. But they just also let you do it the Devil May Cry way as well.
Okay.
Bayonetta 2 only has that dodge button.
I see. Okay, all right.
And here's the thing. Now, it normally wouldn't be that big of a deal for me if it wasn't for one thing in particular, and that is the way that Bayonetta activates her Panther form. It's by pressing the dodge button 2 times in a row.
I see.
So what would happen constantly playing Bayonetta 2 for me is I'm trying to do a dodge, but because I'm mashing the dodge button as I normally would, I'd be like transforming and retransforming back and then transforming into the Panther.
Oh, I see.
In battle when I don't mean to. You see her, she's like seizuring between like being a Panther and not during combat.
Okay, I see. Okay, it's a valid concern.
Yeah, so I'm desperately hoping that the Switch version does something to fix that, because that was, I liked literally everything else about the game. That was the only thing about the game where I'm like, that kind of bugs me.
I have a feeling there might not, because I have a feeling
probably
it's a straight port. Yeah.
Probably not, but I should probably learn to just get over it and just play the game. But,
but not actually getting over it, right? Not like the video game that Bennett Foddy came out. Right? I mean,
no, not that one. I'm not touching that.
Not that way.
I'm not touching it.
Okay.
No, thank you.
Okay.
I'm good, man. I'm good.
Okay. All right. The other two games that I mentioned is one of which is Red Dead Redemption 2, which I never finished the first game. I am one of those people that kind of slowed down when it got to the quote unquote Mexico part of the game, where things kind of started really getting weird in terms of the gameplay, like slow-ish in a way. And then this,
I own it and I've never even put it in.
It's great. It is still a great game, in my opinion. It's probably one of the best, if not the best, Western game of all time. That's how far
I'm sure it's great. I just haven't played it.
Yeah. Actually, I might pop it in at some point, because I really do want to play it now. The other game that I want to mention here, and this is the last of my honorable mentions, is Vampire. Not a lot of people know about this game. Have you heard about this game?
I've heard of it, but I know nothing about it.
It is an action RPG made by the guys who not developed last year's Life is Strange. That is a completely different company, but the original Life is Strange. Don't nod. This is their next game.
So they're going from a Telltale style game to now an action RPG?
Yeah, but you got to remember that this isn't their first foray into action, right? Remember Me, which they had Capcom publish, is also...
Which ironically no one did.
Well, it was a PlayStation Plus free game, so I still have that. Thank you very much. So, and it's actually pretty decent. Decent is the right word for it.
I've completely forgotten about the game until you just mentioned it right now, and I'm like, yeah, that was a thing.
That was a thing. I am kind of looking forward to Vampire, because I have been, really kind of wanting to have a good vampire RPG kind of thing. Because, like, if you look at the history of vampires in, RPGs, like here, like in video games and stuff, there's not a lot of good ones. Like, a lot of people still think about Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, which, by the way, can only, the only way to make that game good is through a fan patch. By the way.
Yeah, I heard that game released like as a buggy mess.
Yes, it is. And it's not because of the publisher's fault, I'll tell you that much. Insider info here.
I want to know more about that now.
You can learn all about it by watching this awesome video on Shintai's, on youtube.com/Shintai Reviews called Behind the Veil of whatever. I don't remember the title. You can tell me.
Oh, Behind the Veil of Video Game QA.
Yes, it's a YouTube video that Daniel and I made about the QA department for video games, and that's not really one of the stories there, but gives you kind of a general idea of what might have happened to Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, if you will.
Right. Please watch that video. We worked hard on it, and I think it came out pretty good.
I think so. But yeah, so there's been a shortage of really good vampire-themed RPGs. And, like we had Blood Omen as one of the first ones, and then it turned into an action or adventure game. And then, we have Vampire the Masquerade... was it Masquerade? I almost called like Vampire the Masquerade, which I don't think that's actually the name of that. It was almost like a Neverwinter Nights knockoff. It was released back in the day as well. Redemption, thank you.
I actually played Redemption.
Yeah, and it wasn't that good.
I played it a lot as a kid. I remember liking it at the time, but I mean. That was a long time ago.
Right. And then Bloodlines
probably hasn't held up.
No, it hasn't. And then Bloodlines came out, which, doesn't hold up either. So, and again, if you really think about like the past several years and even decades of gaming, there hasn't been a good vampire-themed RPG. So I have high hopes for Vampire to be really good, especially with the kind of pedigree that is behind it, with Don't Nod actually making it. And if you actually haven't checked out gameplay of it, you guys should, because it's actually really promising and really.
I mean, as long as the characters don't talk like a bunch of hipster college students, I should be good.
That's not gonna happen. No, that's not gonna happen. But it is really interesting. I do recommend people to check out the trailer and stuff. So, but yeah, that's my list of honorable mentions. So. Again, even with our honorable mentions, not a lot of JRPGs, but maybe I'm hoping that more will come out for 2018 because, man, we need some JRPGs.
And again, we're also excluding games that we're not totally sure coming out 2018. Like Kingdom Hearts 3 would have been on my list, but we don't really know. And this is Square we're talking about. They're not reliable.
Yeah, a lot of people, and before people ask about it, Final Fantasy VII Remake Episode 1 doesn't have a clear release date. Death Stranding doesn't have a clear release date. So we can go on.
Soul Calibur 6?
Well, Soul Calibur 6 is actually definitely coming out this year.
Oh, it is?
Yes.
Oh, then that's my honorable mention for sure.
Okay.
I'm gonna steamroll all of you as Mitsurugi, so watch out.
Oh damn! Okay, all right. Some shit talking here. Okay. So, all right.
Hit me up on Steam, bros. I'll mow you down.
Yeah. So, before we actually move on to the questions, from the mailbag and stuff, I want to kind of bring up like, a brand new video series that I've created that always comes out every Friday. It's called some longtime listeners and fans might have heard about it. It's called the Community Question of the Week. Do you remember that, Daniel?
Vaguely. It's from the far reaches of my memory.
Yeah, so back in 2008, I actually created a series called... Yeah. Can you believe that 10 years later, I decided to revive this video series? Isn't that crazy?
It's incredible.
Yeah, I met Daniel 10 years ago. which is even mind-blowing if you think about how long that was, right?
I don't want to think about it.
Right? You were like, weren't you in high school like 10 years ago? Like
college, technically. Yeah.
Technically, okay, yeah, okay, we'll go with that. We'll go with that. So yeah, so this was a series that I had a long time ago. In fact, if you Googled the name "Community Questions of the Week," you're actually going to see the people that have, kind of originally asked the questions for Community Question of the Week. Aside from myself, who at the time I think it was like 300 pounds or something, which is freaking scary. But it is there on the internet. But that being said, I am reviving Community Question of the Week, and actually, we already have an episode of Community Question of the Week out. It always comes out every Friday on the YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/mybacklogbattle. And check this out. So, in addition to posting your replies on the question of the week, on the comments, of course, you can actually send us some, in the spirit of 2008, you can also send us video responses. Remember that shit? Video responses.
Oh God, that is a foreign concept to most YouTubers now.
Right. So if you want to, instead of posting a comment on the video, you can actually send me a link to your video response to the question of the week, and I will incorporate it, and of course all the comments and replies into the next video before we talk about the new topic. And naturally,
I remember making a video response back in the day to one of these.
Yeah?
To yours.
Right.
I remember, I don't remember what I asked. I just remember that I put classical music for whatever reason in the background. And one of the people in the video comments was like, "Oh my, it's really nice. I put classical music. It was very soothing." Like,
that is really funny. But we're gonna bring back video responses, damn it. And if you guys want to, again, you guys should check out youtube.com/mybacklogbattle. Community Question of the Week is something that we're gonna be doing every Friday. I'm gonna be incorporating all your responses via the comments or even video form. Just make sure you send me the information, via my Twitter or Facebook. All that information is on the description, and of course, we'll go over that later, which is actually, let's go over it now. Facebook.com/mybacklogbattle and Twitter.com/mybacklogbattle. Just send me that info, and next video you'll be in there. But this week, actually, why don't we actually think about this? Because it's
all right.
The video's out. I think it would be cool to kind of talk about it now. I do talk about what the answer to my question in the video itself, so you guys have probably checked it out. But if not, I will go over it again. The question this week is actually games that you replay. So so basically, what are the games that you sometimes replay or come back to play and stuff like that? What would yours be?
So the ones. See, I don't replay games very often because I'm more in the mindset that if I'm playing a game, it should be a new game to experience something that I haven't already.
Sure.
But I do occasionally replay a game just because that game is so good and I just love re-experiencing it. And the one game that comes to mind the most is probably Final Fantasy IX.
Nice. That's really good. That's a really good answer.
I think I've beaten that game 5 times, which for me, not common. And with the release of the PC version, kind of want to go back and play it again and play that version.
That's really cool. It's too bad they didn't have the high resolution assets to put on there. So
but I actually found a mod that cleans up the backgrounds and makes them look really good.
Okay, all right.
Because if you just play the PC version as is, it's basically the same backgrounds as the PS1 version, untouched.
Right.
But I found this mod that makes them look way less pixelated.
Okay, that's cool. That's real cool.
And it's basically looking at the same backgrounds, but without the pixelization. and it looks pretty good.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Definitely looking forward to it. So just really quickly, I'll talk about, I'll mention like what the game that I like replaying, and that's Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
Yeah,
I
was thinking of that one too.
Yeah, that is a game that I've constantly come back to and replayed over and over. Sometimes I miss it.
So good.
But it's really good. If you guys want more information about why and what else I, constantly replay or want to replay, you can always check out again the Community Question of the Week, which comes out every Friday on the YouTube channel for Backlog Battle, which is youtube.com/mybacklogbattle. And again, I have to stress this. If you guys want to do video responses, it's okay by me. Just make sure I get it. Okay? You can send it to me on Twitter, Facebook, or even podcast on mybacklogbattle.tv if that's better for you. So, all right. Anyways, questions. I have a question by Luis. So his question is, what do you think of Final Fantasy XV's approach of completing the story even a year after launch, which is something unusual for a single-player game?
I haven't played the game personally outside of a stream. So I can't really comment on the story itself, but to address the concept of doing that, bad.
Okay.
I don't think it's a good idea. I mean, it's one thing to do what most games would do, is like you add like an expansion, like DLC, where it's mostly like standalone story content that like it exists outside of the main plot and it's kind of its own thing. Or maybe it's end of game DLC. It's something that takes place like after the end of the game, and it's like an epilogue content.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's fine. But yeah, to the way that they do it, where they're like not constantly, I guess, but they are like making these additions and changes to the story with the patches, is I have to say it's not ideal. It probably wasn't a good idea.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of it, but I understand what they're trying to do. It's basically they're trying to kind of pare down like the scope of the original ambition. And to me, like, I feel that it's a worthy endeavor. I think this is more of experimentation on turning Final Fantasy into a live game, so to speak, kind of like how Final Fantasy 14 is. I think I'm okay with this because if anything, it adds more context to the world of Final Fantasy 15. And to be quite honest, like, it's not the best story in the world, like, 15, but it's also not the worst. We're not talking like,
that sounds like such a backhanded compliment.
But
it's like, hey, you're not the best, but
think about like
worst.
But think about like what we talked when we talked about Yakuza, right? Like, you can say that Yakuza 5 is the worst in the series, but again, it belongs in a pantheon of other good games. So in the same vein, 15 is a bad game or not so bad game in a sea of like a game with 15 video games in it. You know what I mean? It's difficult. It's like at that point you have to wonder where, like, what would you use to kind of measure a game in that series away from that series? Because it really does belong, and it's really entrenched in that kind of series, that trying to basically say like, oh, it doesn't have innovation or yada 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 is kind of like doing a disservice to the entire series in some weird twisted way, if that makes sense. It's like it's hard to separate one game out of the series and put it alongside, like, I don't know, like a brand new game. It's weird, right? Like it's a weird thing to think about. Yeah
I mean, and I know some people, they like to poo-poo whenever you like make comparisons like that. It's like, oh, you should just look at them in a vacuum. But at the same time, like, I also feel that this Final Fantasy series, especially, is such a illustrious series that's been running for like so many years now. I think to ignore all that history is kind of doing a disservice to the series.
Yeah.
Like I feel like, yeah, like it wouldn't make sense to just look at Final Fantasy 15 as just its own game and that's it.
Right.
It has to live up to the standards that have been set in the series up to this point.
Exactly. And, and whether or not, you like it or love it or hate it and really dislike it and stuff, like it's obviously all a matter of opinion, but it's relative, like accomplishments and maybe non-accomplishments should be measured, I think, fairly, like against other games in the series, because really, like, a big conversation that I feel we're going to be talking about at some point this year is whether or not 15, whenever you play it, of course, whether or not 15 is actually a worthy addition to the series. Because one of the things that was a common conversation when the game came out is whether or not it should be part of Final Fantasy because of how drastic the gameplay is, right? And, I don't want to kind of get into that kind of conversation, but I want us to kind of think about that notion that because it's so different than most of the games of its, of its series, if you will, that it doesn't deserve to be there. It's kind of, it's kind of questionable.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I do. It's kind of similar to what I was saying about God of War.
Yeah, pretty much.
Although, yeah, I don't want to get into it. I'd say that's a discussion for another time.
Yeah, I feel like we're just piling up conversation.
You gotta keep the viewers, be like, oh no, talk about it. Like,
yeah.
We'll leave for another time.
Yeah, totally. So, anyways, hopefully, Luis, that answers your question. And if you do have other questions, dear listener / viewer, send those emails at podcast@mybacklogbattle.tv. Tweet me on Twitter. I almost said tweet me on Facebook. That doesn't make sense. Tweet me on Twitter at twitter.com/mybacklogbattle and message me on Facebook at facebook.com/mybacklogbattle. And let us know your questions and, comments and stuff. We'll definitely appreciate your thoughts on the matter. So, but absolutely. But before we go, Daniel, do you want to talk about what's going to be happening to the podcast on the YouTube channel over the next week or so?
Sure. So we've been putting full episodes of the podcast on the channel, but we've recently decided that, you know what? I think what would be a better idea is if we put highlights from the full episodes on the channel instead and link to the full episode in the description. And kind of our mindset was, listening to a full episode of the podcast is a big investment. These can last from like an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours. It's a big time commitment. So sometimes you're not even sure if you want to listen to the whole thing, but we can give you what we think are the highlights, the best parts of the episode, and you can make the judgment call. It's like, yeah, this is really good. I want to listen to the rest of this. So we think moving forward that this will be the best way to go about it, because in this way, for a fact whether, you liked what you heard and you want to make that full commitment. And I think it'll be easier for us as well, because putting the full episodes on the channel, I think, was an interesting idea, but I think this will work even better just because people will be able to get a better taste, a better idea of what we're about, of what the podcast is about, without having to jump and dive into the whole thing.
Yeah, like,
right from the get-go.
Yeah, like bite-sized chunks of the podcast, if you will. I'm actually really excited about this because, for the longest time, like, I wanted to do something really cool with, the podcast and stuff, because I didn't really feel, that it was visually interesting to just put the podcast online and stuff. But with this one, I'm actually pretty excited because I can actually create like some kind of funny animations maybe that accompany some of the discussions, so it was just as interesting to watch the video as it is to listen to what's going on, so
that's exactly it. That's another thing that we feel that we can do with this new format, where we can make watching it more interesting, because let's face it, the way we had it before, it's just an audio podcast that just happens to also be a video. Here, we actually can take advantage of the video aspect of the equation.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I'm super excited about this because Daniel and I have had some really funny conversations and interesting conversations over the past, several weeks and stuff. And again, since it's 2018, we actually hope to bring you more of that and so much more. So this is just the start. This is just the beginning. So hopefully you guys are really excited about it. But before that, I do want to kind of remind people that you can find this new kind of video series and all of this stuff on the YouTube channel at youtube.com/mybacklogbattle. You can find Daniel talking about so much more, like, more granular video game design stuff, and his love for JRPGs on youtube.com/Shintai Reviews. And of course,
please check out my new video on Final Fantasy IX. If I mentioned it earlier before, I'm bringing it back. I talked about FF9 in my latest video, talking about the art of small details.
Yes.
And if you're a fan of that game, I think you'll enjoy the video.
I think so too. And just like what I said, podcast at mybacklogbattle.tv if you guys have any questions, comments, or suggestions for today's show. And naturally, if you guys want to help us out, please consider using bit.ly/Amazon Backlog Battle for all your purchasing needs on Amazon.com. Remember, you save like 20% off on, all pre-orders and stuff if you're a Prime member. So, all right. Well, that was a pretty damn long and good episode for 2018 for the first one.
Absolutely.
For this show. And I am about parched. I need to find a glass of water, but we will be ending the show right now. Thank you very much for joining us, everybody. And we'll see you guys next week and play more games. All right? See ya.